This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to Property Showcase, the podcast that brings you closer to the service providers that can inform your decisions about how you buy, manage and research top investment opportunities. Be informed and become a better investor with Property Showcase.
Hello everyone, Grace Ormsby here. Welcome back to another episode of the Property Showcase. And as that intro suggests, we are all about giving you the inside scoop of the know-how, what's going on in the property market and the people that know what it is doing and how you can get the best out of your investment opportunities. And it is an absolute pleasure to be welcoming Rishi Bajaj to today's show. Rishi, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, Grace. Yeah, pleasure's mine. Thanks a lot for inviting me on the show over here. And just to let you know, I've been investing for 15 plus years across New Zealand and also Australia, having purchased 8 properties and now a buyer's agent in the industry.
You are a buyer's agent with InvestorKit, and we've done a lot of work with InvestorKit over the years. We know how much work goes on behind the scenes with what you guys are doing. So I'm very curious about what we're going to be talking about today, because in the briefing that you have given me, you're talking about the mistakes that Sydney and Melbourne property investors make. And that's probably not what people want to be hearing, that they're making mistakes when they're getting into those markets. But it is a topic that, especially at this point in time, we're seeing a lot of people that aren't sure where to go next with their investing, and no one wants to make mistakes. So Rishi, what do you see when you're working with those property investors across those cities?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like Grace, if I take myself 15, 20 years back, I would just start thinking, so what mistake could I have done? But now over these years, this is something I would like to share today, that I have noticed few mistakes, including I've also done some of them. That's how I've burned my hands and learned that the Sydney and Melbourne property investors often make.
So what are they? I know there's a few. So let's just outline them first, and then we'll sort of unpack what that actually means.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of them, but maybe I'll just talk with some of the top few ones. The first one I'll talk is location over asset type. Now, when it's a location over asset type, what I mean is like people buy apartments in Sydney thinking of this great suburb. It's got everything, job, schools, beaches, and they love the proximity. Then all of a sudden they think, oh, wow, this is like 2 million, 3 million. This is not my budget. What do I do? Hey, oh, wait, there's a 1-bedroom apartment, 1.2 million. Maybe I can buy that. Now, they make this mistake as more and more supply comes. And although houses can't be built, but more and more apartments are built. More apartments are owned by investors rather than owner-occupied. And so you constantly have this lack of performance and growth. As you have seen across many parts of Sydney, where since 2016, many apartments have not even grown much or anything. The indexes show in the past 10 years, Sydney's houses' median price has grown by 116%, while apartments it's only 43. I mean, I'm not saying that apartments don't grow, but but some apartments have grown better than the average in popular suburbs. The growth is still much lower than the house counterpart.
And it is something people are just so desperate to get onto the property market or onto the property ladder that they just go for what they can afford. But you're saying that, maybe that's not the best thing to be doing, especially when you're looking in a more expensive market.
Yeah, see, that's what something I've learned from day one, and what I've learned from others is that, so what's a better choice? A house and apartment? We know a house has a piece of land, and generally goes better than an apartment because apartments are prone to oversupply risk, while the number of houses is limited with the land availability. And, apartments, they just grow vertically.
So what do you say then, Rishi, when people do come to you and say, I really want to be buying, in the Sydney market, but here is my very strict budget? Do you try and steer them to other locations, or how do you combat that and provide people with the information they need to make the best decisions that they can?
See, for us, we do not sell things like land packages and others, but for us as the clients first, what does he want? What is his goal? Where does he want to reach? And we're not financial advisors, but we can always, based on our experience, we can consult with them, we can guide with them what's their budget and where the best pocket they can invest their money. That could be Sydney, that could be regional, based on our statistics and how the market is moving.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, location over asset type is basically what we just talked about. One of the big mistakes that people do make when they're looking in the Sydney and Melbourne market. But I know that from what you've been telling me, it's not the only mistake that people do make. What else do people need to be really wary of before they do make an investment decision in one of those cities?
So, the other one I would really like to share, because this was me 10 years ago, 12 years ago. It's backyard over borderless. Now, many Sydney investors are only willing to buy in Sydney, or even more, only willing to buy around their area. If you are one of these investors, don't think your preference is wrong. There's no right or wrong here. It's just that only buying in your backyard is likely to slow down your journey to your investment success. Now, it's when you hear from people about discomfort that, oh, I know this area, or that area is developing, or that area is going well. I'm just going to focus on my city because it's first, and I should do that. But then you even forget that with an average median price in Sydney of $1 million today, the average purchase now to even buy something in your backyard has pretty much taken up all, if not most, of your borrowing capacity. And now you just start fingers crossing that everything is going to work fine.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. And do you think, I mean, you said yourself, you've made that mistake in the past. Has COVID opened people's minds up to potentially looking further afield? Now that we have got more comfortable with maybe doing remote inspections, or, getting an agent to help you when they do work across the country, maybe to do Zoom calls or a FaceTime to walk you through a property, things like that. Is that something that you're seeing a bit of a shifting attitude to? Are people becoming more comfortable with going borderless in 2023?
More than comfortable, I would say it's more of the awareness.
Yeah.
That people are picking this up, and we are more of a data driven, and this is how we share with people. For example, if you were living in Sydney's inner west 5 years ago, buying a 500 to 800 property was hard luck. But then if you start going to like Sydney Metro, or you go to Blue Mountain, Central Coast, start opening, you get more options. For example, the median price of Metro Sydney Brinkley has gone up by 35%, beyond 46%. And they're in regional Queensland, an average median price of $600,000 has crossed $1 million in 2022. So, and when our clients, the customers, and they see this, they're quite surprised when they see you all day. But that's when we try to give them that virtual feeling. We send videos of the site where they can obviously not touch, but they can feel the environment, they can see the visual photos, how the property looks like, and they understand the whole concept of going regional.
And where do you then think some of those top picks are for people? I guess it does depend completely on their own circumstances and what's going on, but where are some of the areas that you are seeing as offering better opportunity at this point in time than perhaps the Sydney or Melbourne choice?
And that's a very good question, and I think that's the very first question when we're having a barbecue session or a drink session. So it's all data driven. All our customers' preference are on the budget. Yes, last year we did see South Australia has gone really good. The market has really grown. Now we can see Queensland, that's going good. We have Rocky, Toowoomba, Bundaberg. These are the areas that are really growing. We are not saying that other regions always grow better than Sydney either. Even market has its highs and lows. We can never tell a market's future growth by just looking at its past performance, but we need to examine many more economic and market indicators that contribute to growth, right? Yeah, these are the things that, they're kind of giving us those red flags.
For sure. One thing that's sort of been a recurring underlying, I guess, topic that we've touched on today, but we haven't really expanded on is the idea of borrowing capacity, limiting people's options. So if people can't afford the $2 or the $3 million property, land and house in Sydney, then they're looking at a $1.2 million apartment instead. And so borrowing capacity really, really does come into it. But I know you have some thoughts on this. So, how important is borrowing capacity to what people should be doing when it comes to making investment decisions?
Yeah, borrowing capacity, that's very important. It's like you need to know how much fuel you have in your car before you go out for a drive. So bringing that over here, Sydney's housing is generally so expensive that almost all property buyers need to maximize their mortgage amount to afford a property. And when I'm saying that is, So the idea of just putting all the eggs in one basket is kind of stretching your limits just to go for one house. Where it's common that majority of the buyers in Sydney, they get their borrowing capacity to determine that. It's a good approach, but a smarter way would be to figure out, what's your buying strategy based on your capacity. Meaning that you don't need to spend all your borrowing amount on one house. Now, what I'm trying to say is that if you go, for example, your borrowing capacity is 800K. Now, with an 80% mortgage, you can buy a 1 million house, or you can even borrow 2 properties of 500K. On an average, 1.2 median price for Sydney, your rental is 600, 700. If you split that into 2 500K, that's where you get a rental of approximately 450, 400, even for 450 for the rent. So now you can see the rental combined of 2 500K properties would be more than a 1 million property. And also the reason that indexes show that higher price regions tend to have lower rental yields.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Especially, we are seeing that really funny point in the market, aren't we? Where we've seen capital gains and capital growth achieve so much over the last couple of years. But while we're seeing rental vacancies so low, we're still not actually seeing them meet up in the middle. While values have exploded in some cases by around 30 to 40%, you're not going to get those kind of increases in your rental yields at the same point. So definitely some really good food for thought there, Rishi. And how much of this do you wish you knew at the beginning of your own property investment journey?
I wish I knew all of them, but as I said, there's never a wrong time to start investing. There are always 2 times to invest, either invest today or 10,000 years ago. There's never a wrong time to invest, but yes, you have to see what are the indicators in the market. And I wish I knew all of these, but the most important for me, as I told you, is, these 3 unwise choices are not just a result of Sydney sky high prices. It's a fast growth in the past decade. But also because many investors see property investment same as buying their own home. So this is me becoming, putting too much emphasis on what they would personally like, but ignoring what the market data is showing. So you have to get, when it's coming to investment, you have to get rid of the emotional owner-occupier mindset. You need a group of professionals assisting you.
So to anyone who is on the fence about jumping in and maybe it's their first property investment, maybe it's their 3rd or their 4th or maybe their 10th, what would you say to those people about the current point in time, whether it's a good time or not to invest at the moment?
Well, what I believe that the market has different phases. In what growth cycle are we? Is it a market that has just, it started showing the growth in the past 1 year and now it's going to have a good growth? Or it's like Sydney, where it has shown a good growth and now it's coming down for the second growth cycle. So it's again, our customers come first. What do they need? What's their expectation? Are they first-time buyers? We're definitely happy to help them. And investment, where's a good place to put their bucks.
So Rishi, if someone has listened to this today and goes, I really want this guy in my corner, how can they reach out and get in touch with you?
Hey, you already said so. We work as a buyer's agent for InvestorKit. And hey, look for anyone wanting to learn more about me or to have a chat with me about your investing goals. I can be reached at rishibajaj.com.au.
Awesome. Rishi, thank you so much for taking the time today. You've given some great insight on the Sydney and Melbourne market and what people maybe need to be thinking a little bit, further afield. Some great food for thought, as I put earlier. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to chatting in the future and seeing what comes next in 2023.
Definitely. Thanks, Grace. Thanks a lot for your time and thanks for everyone listening.
To everyone who is listening along to this episode of the Property Showcase, we hope you have enjoyed it. If you have any questions, reach out, editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. I will put Rishi's contact information in the copy for this podcast. So if you have any questions, you can look at the link through there. Until next episode, stay safe and well wherever you are listening from. Bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.